Two vascular surgeons walk into a bar and come out with a podcast. We are talking everything vascular and not. Welcome to the Life of Flow podcast.
The following podcast is not relating to my teachings and work at Del Cedar Medical Center and is for entertainment purposes only. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Life of Flow podcast. Let me go.
Hola.
Hola. And today we were lucky enough to have Scott Addonizio.
Cool dude Scott.
Cool dude Scott. NAA. Hashtag NAA. That's the merch. The merch is coming. So Scott is the Chief Operating Officer of BrosMed. He basically just hyper focuses on making the best balloons possible. And we talked a little about his history. We talked about the foundation of BrosMed. We geeked out on balloons. Miguel went on a rant and let out years of trauma off his chest. So it was wonderful. So I hope you guys enjoy, and vamos.
All right, for the audience out there, I want to preface this podcast by saying we did a group text on the top of the show to exchange just a link for Scott to get on. And Lucas looked at me and said, "Do you know how you have his name on your phone?" And I said, "No, I'm guessing Scott Addonizio." He's like, "No, you had him as Scott Cool Dude." And there's a story that will not be mentioned here, but as to why I thought that I needed to do that. But I guess I just want to let all our audience know we're about to talk to a cool dude.
Yeah, exactly.
At least by my absolutely biased and fucked up parameters to evaluate a guy. So I'm not sure you should even be proud of that, Scott, but I think your own acumen will show everybody on the call why I decided and elected to call you a cool dude on my phone.
I could,
I'll take a cool dude description anytime.
That's okay,
I
right?
appreciate that.
Yeah, and it comes from other. Yeah, Scott. We got introduced to David Gunter, really, friend of the pod. I can say that. Another cool dude. So, and we had a brief call. I remember exactly where it was, and I was like, "Oh man, I like this guy. This guy's pretty fucking cool." So I agree with your assessment.
You know what? I'll give you a story about the chief, and if you know who the chief is Craig Walker.
Okay.
And Craig Walker is probably one of the most influential mentors for me very, very early on.
Been a year in this podcast and he hasn't come on.
He's been trying. So in his defense, he's said yes, and he's been, and then stuff happens. But we'll nail him sooner or later. Even
just
if
tell him you got to be on first, he'll be really upset. And he'll join.
Okay.
Even if we have to go to his place in Pensacola and do it there on site with him and go on a boat ride. I think that
sounds
cool.
great. Yeah.
But anyway, one of the things that he said very early on, he's like, Chief, if you want to build something, one rule you always have to abide by. I said, what's that, Craig? It was like, you just have to have no assholes.
Yeah. No assholes allowed.
And I looked at him because I thought he was going to lay some like really inspirational thing. He's like, you just stay away from assholes. And if you stay away from assholes, things actually work out pretty well. Anything, business, clinic, your wife.
Yeah, Craig is definitely adamant about.
Yeah.
I remember the same thing Craig said NAA to me. Like, NAA, what is that? He's like, no assholes allowed.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. So thanks to the chief for that nugget.
Can we have that as merch?
Definitely.
NAA. Okay.
NAA.
All right.
Hashtag LOF.
Yeah,
exactly.
NAA.
No assholes allowed.
Okay, good.
You'll have to send the first one to the chief. He'll appreciate it.
Yeah.
So, Scott, we've had, of course, for us here, we speak about everything vascular and not. And you come as someone who represents the commercial side, the business side of things. And for us, it's always super interesting to learn. I feel in a way we're both entrepreneurs here. I'm hoping that Lucas shortly here takes the plunge into entrepreneurship. Although he's done it already, maybe just not clinically entrepreneurship, but he'll get there. He'll see the light at some point. But I think that it's great to understand paths, journeys, especially because you're new to our audience. And obviously this will be the first of hopefully many more conversations. But give us a little bit of your path. What got you to where you're at today? When you go back to, I don't know, college, or when you were thinking of what to do with your life,
Sure.
did you think you were going to be here at some point?
Oh no. So yeah, actually my path is pretty interesting. I'd have to say, even being biased to my own path, but I literally got into medical and in the whole medical industry because when I went to college, I basically had my first internship when I was at Michigan State University undergrad with Boston Scientific in Watertown before they had built the Natick facility. So this is back in 1994. And I worked in for a microcatheter, a neural microcatheter, as an intern. And so they moved me out there, and I was supposed to be there for 6 months. I wound up staying 9 months, going back to school because I had one more term left at school a little bit late. And I just fell in love. And this is back when everyone came to the meetings smoking cigarettes, drinking coffee, everything smelled bad. This is great. Like I couldn't get enough of it. And then I went back to school with about $2,500 in my pocket, and I was like the campus rich man because drinks for a quarter, shots 50 cents. And so it was but the experience with Boston Scientific was, I was floored because I was doing more materials engineering, so I was packaging material engineering, and just got into I just happened to get the internship, and I was late applying, so I must have applied for 50 different internship positions. And every time you got rejected, if you brought the letter to the bar, you get a free drink, which I thought was pretty cool. So I had a lot of free drinks. And then I get to Boston Scientific showed up late and called a later interviewing process. So I remember I got suited up. My friends were all, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "I got another interview." And I really put my nose to the grind on I wanted to do an internship somewhere. And so I wound up getting the Boston Scientific one and just fell in love with the whole medical device industry and talking with physicians. So I went back to school at Michigan State for one more term, and then I had 5 offers with that internship under my belt, and I chose Cordis.
So what did you graduate? What was your degree then?
So I have a Bachelor of Science in Packaging Material Engineering.
Okay.
And then I went into grad school after, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. But so Cordis hired me, and I was going to go back to Boston Scientific, but I mean, come on, 23 years old, Miami, Cordis.
Yeah.
And it was going to be great. So I went back down to Cordis and started working with Cordis, and Cordis was just phenomenal. Just a great company. We had so much fun. It had so many, we were smaller, I think we were maybe 1,500 people. And that was right before the J&J acquisition. And all the devices, like the team, the motivation, the sense of urgency, it was all there. I mean, we even had the CEO run an info on tap every last Friday of the month where he'd bring a keg into the cafeteria and we'd all drink. Would never fly anymore, but it was awesome.
Yeah.
So I worked there until J&J acquired us in 1997. And then it was probably the most spurred up pot of ingredients for startups. So we all kind of left, and I started a company with 2 of my partners called Orbis. And so with Orbis, I actually was working on stents. So when I was at Boston Scientific, I did a lot of work with like I told you, the microcatheter division. When I went to Cordis, I was all over. I worked on stents, CSIs, catheter sheath introducers. I was an industrial design engineer for Cordis Endovascular, the CES division. And I was promoted pretty quickly and I was only there for about 2 years before I joined Orbis. And in Orbis, myself, David Camp, Rob Catone started that company, and we focused on stents. And that's where my first big change happened. I designed the stent called the Addonizio stent. And originally it was supposed to be for a peripheral family, but then it became more for a coronary. And I did that. I worked with Rob, and also worked a lot with Dr. Gary Becker, who's an interventional radiologist. And we were able to basically struggle. We had $1 million in funding. We blew through it overnight. We were sleeping at David's sister's house in Rotterdam, getting yelled at by Patrick Surice every day. We were just making things work. I remember the first time they expanded the stent, they're expanding it, and they're like, 12 atmospheres, 14 atmospheres, 16 atmospheres, 20 atmospheres. Finally opens up at 22, 24 atmospheres. And I just remember Patrick saying, "This is a very robust stent." and we were just all white and kind of like, wow. So that was where it all started, as from a startup. And I love that sense of urgency, not knowing where the next paycheck's coming from type world that we can live in. And so we wound up doing that. we partnered with a company called Niche Medical, which was Teddy Chen's company. And so fast forward a little bit, became Orbis Niche around the 2003 time frame. And then they were the exclusive distributors for Cordis in Asia Pacific. And Teddy's just a master in commercialization and just such a brilliant man. And so he was the CEO and owner of Orbis Niche, or at the time Niche Medical. We merged the two companies because he was our angel on our shoulder. He was funding a lot of it. He said, "I keep funding you guys. Why don't I just acquire you and we'll partner up?" So back in probably 2003, he basically rolled the company into Niche Medical, and it became Orbis Niche. We called it Orbis Niche because one is better than saying no. So ON versus NO. So
Yeah.
it was Orbis Niche. And then we grew that. And that became how we started focusing on the Addonizio patent, did a combo stent, started doing chronic total occlusion devices, and just made a huge balloon company out of that company, Orbis Niche. And that kind of got me into the area where biggest changing point in my life, the biggest, I'd say, critical move in my life from my career was they were going to hire a general manager in China. And I said, why? I already know all the people. I've already helped, Teddy in several situations. So I said, I'll go over there and do it for 1 year. Well, the 1 year turned into 15 years. And I spent 15 years in mainland China running Orbis Niche. And just being exposed to different cultures, tons of VCs, tons of PEs, became a board member of that company, grew that company to $100 million in just balloon sales. We had a small sales in the stent, but just balloon sales. And that's where I was like, oh my God, there's so much that goes into lesion preparation. And so many people just were on that DC, at the time, DES, drug-eluting stents, kick, and then the DCB, and also bioresorbable at one point. But we stayed focused on 1.0 millimeter balloons, high pressure, semi-compliant, non-compliant, scoring, and really drove that whole design effort into the uniqueness of a balloon where people, like you said, some people believe balloons are commodities, which they kind of are in a pricing world, but they're so different too. So I did that.
So what a question, Scott, Orbit, where is Orbit's market share? Like what parts of the world are they big at?
Oh, Orbit. So Orbis Niche's market share is everywhere, but so is BrosMed. So Orbis Niche was my previous company. BrosMed's where I'm COO now.
Yeah, but I was asking like ON at the time was operating out of where? Because do they have
Shenzhen,
a big
China,
but not a big presence here in the U.S., right? I mean, I don't.
Not at all.
I can't recognize that company, at least as a big company that I've ever dealt with.
So get this. This is what you'll remember. So then in 2017, before I left Orbis Niche in 2019, I did a deal with CSI, and I started this. I took their orbital atherectomy device with BrosMed or with Orbis Niche outside of US and Japan, and sold it in EMEA and Asia. At the same token, we signed a contract where they became our sole distributors in the United States for our balloons. So the balloons, you'll remember, were distributed by CSI, and they're Jade. They were Sapphire 2 Pro.
Yeah,
I love the Sapphire. Yeah.
So you used a lot of those.
Yeah.
So the guys of BrosMed, the people in BrosMed were the guys running that I managed at Orbis Niche. They started the BrosMed company in around 2013. So a lot of those guys left, and they started with the concepts of Orbis Niche and brought it to another level with BrosMed. But so you've used the product through distribution of CSI, which is now owned by Abbott.
I was about to ask, so Orbis Niche is also owned by Abbott, or no? There's nothing. They have nothing to do.
No. So
Okay.
Orbis Niche is a publicly traded company now in Hong Kong.
Okay,
But their products in the United States are distributed by Abbott.
understood. Okay.
So then some of those people branch out and do BrosMed.
Yeah. So in 2012, a couple of my guys, Benny Lee, who's the CEO of BrosMed, came to me and said, "Hey, we want to start our own company." And I started my own company too. So I was like, "That sounds awesome. What are you going to do?" And he's like, "Well, we're going to do this." And I'm like, "Okay." So so it's a funny way how they got their name too. So I moved to China. I'm a complete Weilao, which means I'm a foreigner. So it translates to white ghost.
And sorry,
So,
let me
white
stop you a
ghost.
little bit there before we dive into this more. But like, do you speak a language?
Well, we saw you yet. So I just said I speak it a little.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I can get in trouble in Chinese. I understand a lot. I've been there for 15 years, so it's kind of like you had to, you know.
And were you out there alone? Like that's I've been out of my country. You know, I lived in Germany 3 years, and it was rough. It's not easy, and I mean, I can even imagine it in a culture that's so far and so different from ours, and so in everything, you know.
So I moved there. This is even funnier. So I moved there and I shipped out 2005, you know, right after the new year. And at the time I was dating a 5'7" blonde hair, blue eyed girl. So we landed in Hong Kong, spent a little days in Hong Kong. And in Hong Kong, I love it. It's like New York on steroids. And then we went to mainland China. But I remember when I was going over on the plane, to your point, I'm in the middle of the air over the Pacific, and I'm like, I have a one-way ticket. Oh, this is scary. Like I'm moving to China, like China. And so my girlfriend at the time, Laura, and she came with me. And part of it was landing there was just crazy. Like it was such a cultural difference. And you really have, like, you know, with Germany or anywhere, you have to like fully immerse yourself. You got to be open-minded. You got to be able to roll with the punches and different cultural, you know, basically the way they handle things. I started to write a little book and journal called The Unintentionally Inconsiderate, because people don't realize when you go to a different culture, you might think something's totally inconsiderate, but you're wrong, because that's how this culture operates. That's how they move. Like when people run into the elevator before you get out, in the US, you're like, what are you doing? But in China, it's like, there's so many people, you need to get into that elevator. You need, you know, it's just a different culture. So it was really interesting learning the culture. But so Laura and I landed there. She's probably the only blonde hair girl. We lived in Shenzhen, and it was probably at the time I moved there, 15 million people.
Jesus.
So drop a popsicle stick on an ant farm and you walked into Shenzhen.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just people everywhere. So that was really interesting. So it was a cultural shock. I didn't know anything. To me, China was more, you know, Bruce Lee. I didn't know how to say ni hao. I knew nothing about the language or anything. But we just kind of acclimated to it and tried our best. I didn't take any lessons or anything, but I had hundreds of people reporting me only speaking Chinese. So you had to learn. So I do speak it. I'm not fluent. The tones are off, but I can make fun of you guys for a half hour in Chinese if you want.
Yeah. That sounds fun.
We'll do another show for that.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll do another show. No, man, I remember, Scott, just stuff like, I was trying to go back and thinking about like the most basic things, like you know, I rented an apartment, right? And renting an apartment was a whole mess of like things that needed to happen.
Yeah.
Then they sublet a lot because they go on like big vacations, or they do their like,
They go for like,
they go like weird things. Like they'll take like a year off, right? Like they're these kind of like a break from their life for a year, and they go do something else. And so you would just walk into somebody's house, but they would leave everything there. And so I remember going in, and there was like, I was in the apartment of a girl. And so it was kind of weird because like I was in her closet, so my shit was next to hers, and there's like all these like girl shit in there. And so then when my girlfriend would come, she'd be like, "What's all this?" I was like, "Those thongs are the girl that lives here, but she's not here." Like it was like really weird. And then I remember like I couldn't get internet because to get an internet account was so different. And then all German, I didn't understand shit of German. Like it was. And so now, those are like just dumb things, right? Of how to survive the basics, like how to get electricity and water and services, and, where to park a bike. And I remember getting arrested because I thought that the transportation, I got a ticket for jaywalking.
yeah.
And then I got arrested because they caught me that I was a recurrent free rider on the metro. I thought it was a service of the community. And then the guy comes up and he's asking me for tickets, but he's wearing a jacket, like whatever. And I'm like ignoring him because I'm like, and he was like an undercover cop.
Yeah.
So anyway, all these things that you don't understand, then I'm thinking, this dude did it for 15 years. You're crazy. Which then to me shows this guy's got grit.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
you are probably one of the most resilient fuckers that I've ever met. And I don't really know you that well, but nobody goes to China
For 15
and
years.
stays for 15 years, over almost 2 decades of their life in an absolutely different environment, leading a team of massive people that you don't understand. Like, that is so, I think that just makes you a boss.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, those stories are great too. Like, I put soap into my dishwasher by accident because I couldn't read the label, and my whole kitchen went into suds.
Yeah.
We went to a restaurant and had they refused to serve what I asked for. I said, there's pictures. I said, I want this. Well, yeah, Juga, I want this. No, you don't want that. I want this. So I'm with my girlfriend at the time, and we keep saying, yes, don't worry about it. The price it's like $5 for a bowl of soup. We want it. So 10 minutes later, they finally say, fine, we'll give it to you. I kid you not. They came out with a bowl that was for like 35 people. So what they were trying to tell me was, you're ordering a bowl for like a party. And I couldn't figure out why they didn't want to give it to me. And then I look at them, I'm like, wouldn't you just bring like 2 little bowls, charge me the price? But no, they brought me I had soup for like half a year. So I was just, little things like that were so good. And so, yeah, so after a year of being there, it was funny. I was kind of positioned by my girlfriend at the time, who was a champion. So, if you don't marry me, I'm out of here. And I was young, and I didn't want to get married. So I gave her a ticket home. And then I was there solo for 14 years.
Wow.
Well, not with her, but
Yeah.
then I wound up actually meeting my wife in China. My daughter was born in Hong Kong. She holds a dual citizenship, which is pretty cool. She's got a Hong Kong passport and a U.S. passport. And I actually am probably one of the only people I know that has a green card. So because I was a patent holder, ran a high-tech corporation, spent 4 years there, they issued me a green card. So I don't even need a visa or anything. I can go back to China like having a driver's license.
Oh,
And I thought
cool.
that was
Very
pretty,
interesting.
and it took me 3 rounds. The first 2 rounds I got rejected. I had to get documentation from the U.S. government signed at that time by like Hillary Clinton and like all this, Condoleezza Rice and all this stuff.
Oh, wow.
And that was pretty interesting process to get a green card. Also, I'd say a green card is much harder to get than a U.S. passport. Absolutely, because I kind of did it as I really want a green card. I just think it'd be cool to have, and don't have to use my passport flying around in China and all that. And I finally did get it. It's good for 10 years, and interesting enough, so we do the Orbis Niche thing. We make a huge success. Orbis Niche is probably now, it's a publicly traded company in Hong Kong. I'm still great friends with the owners. I went to Thanksgiving 2 years ago back in Hong Kong and celebrated with Teddy. Teddy's an older gentleman. David, his son. I spent 25 years with that family. They're my second family. And then, so I went back, and it's funny. My wife my wife now, I only have one wife and one daughter. She can't go back to China now because she got her U.S. passport. So if she wants to go to China, she's got to apply for a visa.
Oh,
I think it's great. I don't have to do anything. I can just go.
Oh,
So my daughter and I could just go, and now so it's very interesting how this all plays, the whole geopolitical landscape.
She was a Chinese citizen and had to give up her Chinese citizenship to take the U.S. citizenship. Interesting.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you a side story. Costa Rica. We changed our law back. I was in 1990. There was a brilliant physicist by the name of Franklin Chang. Franklin Chang was the first Costa Rican citizen that actually went all the way up to NASA, became an astronaut, holds records for some of the longest space flights there. Anyway, what happened was, when you can't be a NASA, you can't fly for NASA unless you're a U.S. citizen. So when he got to the point that he was offered the U.S. citizenship, because he'd also married an American physician, he took it. And of course, he had to relinquish his Costa Rican citizenship because of the law of Costa Rica. So the relinquishing doesn't necessarily is the U.S. government asking you to relinquish. It's the Chinese government that says you can't hold it if you're going to take that one.
Yeah.
So the Costa Rican law actually immediately was like, we good, man.
Yeah.
You can
You
have
keep it.
both
You keep it.
because
Yeah,
we
yeah.
want a Costa Rican citizen to be up in space. So fast forward, I have dual citizenship. So when I go to Costa Rica, I walk into the nationals and I put mine in my bag, and then I walk out of Costa Rica with it, but then I come into the US with the US. So I'm just doing it.
Can Jenna get a Costa Rican?
She needs to, in Costa Rica she can, but we need to live there 2 years consecutively. So at some point when we migrate.
How about baby Lucas? Can he?
Baby Lucas has a dual citizenship.
That's cool.
Yeah, baby Lucas already has his dual passport.
Yeah, I like the dual. I mean, for my daughter, it's great because it's a Hong Kong passport's great. It's kind of like a Singaporean passport. You can go anywhere. No one, there's no conflicts or any of that. So it's a great passport to hold. But I also think having the dual, or just having her be, she looks like me, actually. She almost looks Hawaiian, actually. But so when we go to, I want to see in the future when she goes to college and everything, what am I going to be? Am I going to be that white American, or am I going to be the Oriental Chinese? What's going to benefit my daughter?
Yeah, good luck. Good luck when she writes like what she is, because I always have a problem when it's like, are you Hispanic or white? I'm like, well, I'm kind of white, but like I'm also Hispanic. Like, what does being Hispanic negate the fact that I'm being white? Like, I don't even know sometimes what to answer.
I don't know.
It's so goofy.
Yeah.
It's funny.
So that was like my career changing moment, was being overseas for that long. To your point, it's takes a certain personality with a lot of grit.
It certainly does.
But at the same token, I learned so much of what I know now from that experience. It was amazing. I ran a 100,000 square foot facility, one-stop shop, and now I'm doing the exact same thing. Like BrosMed is just a bigger version of that. BrosMed is
So let's talk more about BrosMed. Let's dive deep into when was the aha moment? How did it come? Like, was it at a bar like most of our shit happens? Like, or how did that come to fruition?
That aha moment was back in 2012, like I was saying earlier. One of my partners, the guy who worked with me, he ran the manufacturing operation. His name is Benny Lee. He's a CEO and co-founder of BrosMed. He literally got a taste of, like, I know a lot of what's going on. I know how to build these things better. I know how to build the equipment in-house better, but I'm kind of working for someone else. I'd like to see if I could do the business aspect and the investment aspect on this by myself or on my own. So Benny came to me and said, hey, I'm going to do this. And so I kind of talking about it a little earlier. So when I landed in China, I brought my own language. I think one thing I did very well was I brought the Western culture and Eastern culture together. I took the benefits, the strengths of both, and I didn't try to go in and will my way into how you're going to run the business. And by doing so, I picked up on their language. But I'm like to say brother. I like to say bro. And the industry knows me like that. And so they came to me. So Benny's like, I'm going to start a new company, and I'm going to call it Brothers Medical. I'm like, nah, you're not. I'm like, listen, we can start your own company, but why don't we shorten it a little bit? Why don't you call it BrosMed? So in actuality, while I was at Orbis, I actually was pretty instrumental in helping him name that company. And so that's where the BrosMed came out. It was the 4 brothers, 4 good friends that wanted to start a medical device company and said, we can do this better. We can do this faster. We can grow this. We want to take over more of a presence in China. So at the time, even though my previous company was strong and in Hong Kong and China, most of the sales were EMEA, APAC, and not to the US. I brought it to the US in 2017, but before that, none. So Benny was like, I want this to be strong in China also. So he started that company raising about, probably several million renminbi. And at the time, the renminbi was probably, I don't know, 7 to 1 US dollars. So so he started that. And the aha moment was, he just graduated from grad school. He wrote a thesis on medical devices. I forget exactly what it was. I helped proofread it because he had to write it in English also. And so he basically just wanted that opportunity to expand his CV. And I thought, that's great, because I did it when I was young. He wanted to do it while he was still young. And then full circle after, the Metal Alliance stuff, we've always stayed in touch. I actually did a deal with BrosMed for Metal Alliance for what we needed to put the drug-coated balloon, the solution drug-coated balloon on a peripheral platform. We use the BrosMed balloon for the peripheral program for Med Alliance solution. So that's so it was great because I already knew what they were doing. I know all the programs, I know all the people. And that's kind of where that aha moment was like, okay, he started his own company and he wound up growing it globally, following the same model that my team and I implemented for Orbis Niche back in the earlier days when he was still part of that. So he kind of like did a fast follower type technique and implementing and penetrating the market, but had a much more higher focus on the local market also, which is difficult. I think that's where he got his little lead, was that he became very strong in mainland China, but is also strong and 2.5 million units strong globally. So we move about 2.5 million catheters a year for BrosMed. And I just entered the US in October of 2000, last year, 24. And we're already we're moving mountains. So he really just wanted to go out on his own and start this.
But explain something. He starts BrosMed. You're also a founding partner, right? Did I get that wrong or no?
I was running Orbis Niche. I just said I understand what you're doing. So I was part of the discussions, like saying this is what we're going to do. But I was always Orbis Niche. I wasn't a founder. I was a founding friend. I was a founding bro. But not involved.
Okay, so he starts that company. You remain with Orbis Niche. Then you move the Med Alliance. He's doing this in parallel. You're not necessarily involved with the company at that point directly. You don't. Okay. And then the Med Alliance deal goes through. Cordis comes up, purchases the Med Alliance. That deal happens.
Yeah.
And when was that year? When would that deal go down, and when do you leave the company?
That was a long due diligence, but that closed in October of 2024.
So then, at that point, you essentially step out, right? When that deal goes down, then they, like everything in these deals, usually M&A happens, the leadership moves away, right?
So they kept me on. So I became an executive VP at Cordis, and I stayed there from October through July of that same year. So it was so it was October 2020. Let me get these years right. I stayed with Cordis until July of 2024, and that the official deal was done like 9 months or like 6 months before that. So it's right in that 2023, 2024 timeframe. So Cordis kept me on as a VP. Obviously, I wasn't going to be COO. They already had a COO. So they kept me on as a VP, and then I was severed out. And my last day with Cordis, even though I'm still a consultant for Cordis, was in July of 2024.
Okay. And when that happens, then that's when you take a formal position with Bros?
Yep.
Okay.
So right in July, like August 1st, I officially started, but right after I had a couple offers, a couple things I was looking at, but then Benny and I talked, and I'm like, you have no presence in the United States, and you really don't have anyone helping you to organize or decide what products you should be launching and where. I'm like, why don't we just do this again? And Benny was like, and that's when he had a press release saying, his press release was kind of funny because he's like, I get to play basketball with my good friend again. Like, we had a lot of good times together. So it was more like you guys are. It's more like going back to family. Like, he's my brother. And we've known each other forever. So I went back to just said, hey, I'll take over as COO. I'll open up I'll be the CEO of the US operations. I'll open it up for you. I'll do exactly what we did with the US sales when I was at Orbis Niche, and we're doing it. And we're taking accounts every day. So it's like, it's just kind of, it's like breathing. It's like you doing your procedures. This to me is like the same exact thing I did a decade ago. I'm just repeating it and doing it better, not doing the things I did wrong.
And so what's at the core of BrosMed? So how do you describe the company? Is this a balloon company? Is that the gist of it?
So I would describe this best as a lesion preparation company.
Okay.
That just continues to innovate. Dumps 20% of our revenue. We're a profitable company, but dumps 20% of our revenue back into R&D. We're working on IBL, DCB, scoring, high pressure, like the OE, the SIS-ONB balloon or whatever the acronym is, 30 plus atmosphere pressure balloons. We're looking at anything you tell me you need. Like, physicians will say, hey, you need a 4 French system. We want everything to go through 4 French. So I'm working on 7mm, 8mm diameter balloons that are 4 French compatible. Or a perfect example of something we're working on that you find funny. Dr. Eric Dipple says, no one will make me a 400mm balloon. Well, guess what? BrosMed will. So I've already prototyped a 400mm balloon that Dr. Dipple and I believe that it's interesting because someone might want to be a one and done and not have to wait. You do a 300 or a 150 and you got to wait another 3 minutes or 5 minutes. And so the things you come back and say, we don't have the unmet needs. I love that stuff. And when people say, we're not interested, we are interested. We have very competitive pricing. We're 100% vertically integrated. We design all our own equipment. We're not buying equipment from other companies. We have in-house sterilization, in-house extrusion, in-house braiding, in-house anything. And that's how we get to be able to compete and offer competitive pricing for the OBLs and ASCs, but also scalability. We're at probably 5 million units a year that we can build. And by 2027, we'll be at 10 million because we're opening up 100,000 square meter campus. That's the first 2 phases will be finished at the end of this year. We're massive. We're just not in the US yet. We are now, but you got to see BrosMed everywhere.
So if someone comes to you, you're trying to build your presence, and you go to these independent physicians, and they say, a balloon's a balloon. Well, can we geek out a little bit on balloons? What's your perspective on that?
I always ask the question, well, who are you using? Balloons are balloons, by the way. You have to have a choice balloon, even if you just think it's a commodity. And a lot of times they'll come back, and my secret weapon is they'll come back and say, hey, we like jade, or we like sapphire too. Well, I design that. That's my team. That's my balloon. So I'll say, hey, I love that balloon. It's a great balloon. That was my team that designed it. I said, but I want you to try this balloon. They're like, you're an inventor of jade? I'm like, yeah. And it's such a great conversation. Then we geek out. Well, what's different about yours? Well, we kept innovating. We kept trying to bring the price more competitive. We're using a total balance system where we're not just hyper-focused on the distal tip. Everyone talks about, well, what's your crossing profile? Crossing profile is okay. You need a good crossing profile, but that's a fraction of why the balloon feels good in your hands. How's the tip manicured? What's your distal and proximal weld? How does this, if you're using a coronary balloon, how's the hypotube transition from a hypotube to a skive to a stiffening wire? If you're using a over-the-wire system where it's just a polymer-based proximal shaft, how do you make it more robust? How do you make it so there is more pushability? And then you go into that where that's all we work on. Like, that's all we care about. So when I give you a product, I know that if I give it to you, I'm going to send my family to you to be treated if they need it. I don't want anyone else's product being treated. That's how you have to look at these devices. And a lot of people just don't want to pay attention to it because they believe a balloon's like a catheter sheath introducer. And even those have their place where, like, I'd say Terumo probably has one of the best catheter sheath introducers. They've been doing it forever. And then I think Orbis Niche's balloons were good for a period of time and still are. But I know BrosMed is just not stopping. They just have the support. We have the profitability. We have the growth. And we're just not in the US. So my whole thing is the catheter has to feel good in your hand, has to get you to those unmet needs. You need to wake up and send me a message on Saturday of your, an image, a fluorographic image, and say, I just did this. And I just was able to cross because of your product. And I get those all the time, even though it's just a balloon.
Explain to me what your strategy is going to be when you're coming into a market where nobody knows you and you have pretty entrenched contracts. And I would say some of which, are hard to break. And these companies that in a way use the balloon as a exchange token to try to create smokes and mirrors to sell you a hyperinflated atherectomy catheter, for example. So how do you, it seems to me like a tough competition. And we've had already multiple companies that have succeeded overseas that when they try to come to the US market, they failed miserably. And I just remember, I'm thinking, for example, remember that aortic graft from the UK? I forget the name of it, that has looks like a fish mouth. It's another one that you put right at the renals. But anyway, they came, massive investment, sales, sales team, training, went out there, and the reality is nobody wanted to change your order graphs. The contracts were entrenched. The systems were rigged in a way to favor those that have been in a while. So it seems to me like it's a huge undertaking. So would you like to, and I'm sure this is not an easy answer, but would you like to maybe tell me what your thoughts are, if any, of what you can share on a strategy standpoint?
Sure. So they failed in probably one major rule that I will not do. You got to aim small and miss small. I will not build a sales force. I will not spend the money I don't have. What I do is I have really good connections in the industry through people I love that I trust, my brothers. And I just brought on a bunch of 1099s, but not new 1099s, not 1099s being not a full-time employee. I think you guys know that, but just salespeople that will work off commission. And what I did was I hand choose these people that I've known forever, and they're going in with my devices. So I'm spending very little money, but yet it drives them to want to have a competitive high price for the salesperson, but at the same token, be competitive for the OBL and ASC. And first and foremost, I don't go for the glory shot. I went in for the contracts that are easy to get into. You don't, you go into an ASC or an OBL, you don't need to fill out as much paperwork. You kind of show them the product, you do your discussions, you let them use evaluations. You pretty much get on board immediately if you want to. In parallel, I'm out doing the GPO stuff, trying to get on Ascension or Mass Gen or, all these other, but that's the chronic victory. The acute victory right now is 1099 your way with good 1099 people that are selling good products and making waves. Give them a little bit more to offer for their portfolio, and then pay them good commissions. So right now, my sales force is me and maybe 6 or 7 1099s and maybe 1 or 2 consultants. And I kid you not, I started in October. I'm in over probably 60 accounts now, of which about to land my first hospital account. And it's been the reason why I think we'll be successful and minimize the risk is my operational costs are minimal. Now, granted, I'm picking product myself, driving the FedEx, sweeping the floor, doing every job that possibly could be done in order to make this operation get to a point where now we can start hiring. But a lot of people, they shoot their wad too quickly and they think, oh, it's going to be perfect and we're going to do everything great. And they spend a ton of money, and you wake up one morning and your bank account's got a couple zeros in it. So I think the secret to what I'm trying to do is aim small, miss small, and get into the right accounts with the right KOLs, the right people like you guys, and let them be the voice of momentum. And so the physicians we're using are, Chief, George Adams. I got Ash Sastry. I got all these people that have used it now and are like, holy my God, this is a really good balloon. And we got scoring balloons, some niche balloons. So get in with the people utilize and spending and keeping minimal operational costs. Now, even though I'm a profitable company, 40 million in sales globally, I treat the US division as broke. We have no money. We're doing this. We're going to build it as a startup. And I think that's part of the beauty and sense of urgency, and allows you to not fall victim to a failure.
That's
Like,
founders
I will not
mentality,
fail.
Man.
And I'm a little bit.
This is founders
confident.
mentality. Scott, sorry to interrupt. It's just, if you've told me, what have you learned in the last 2 years or 3 years now that you've taken this leap of faith, is what I've learned, man, is if you want to get something to work, you got to put all of your energy into it, and you got to be okay with not making money at the beginning, because you got to weather shit. and guess what? As a founder's mentality means every single position within your company, you have to figure out yourself. And when you know that you are, like, when you handle that part of the business more than anybody, that's when you can actually be like, I'm going to let you take over that, because I know exactly what your job's going to be. And so I can I can hold you up to a level of accountability that nobody else can, because I can do what you do. And so I think this is honestly, it's a recipe for success, right? I mean, it's, who knows? Time will tell. But I think that
you're needing a year, and then we'll see.
Well, good for you. Well, I'll here's this, and I've absolutely no disclosure here. I don't have any relationship other than I had you as a cool dude on my phone. But I did the formal evaluation of the product line, and I know that people are gonna be like, oh, you're full shit. No. These are really cool balloons. One of the things that I found super interesting is how lubricious they tend to be. Is there some sort of special coating or something? Because as you are advancing these balloons, it seemed like it seems like they just almost slip in, like they go very easy. Um, is there some sort of hydrophilic or some coating, some special
Sure.
coating that deserves some discussion?
Yeah, so we do have our own hydrophilic coating with like most all balloons have their hydrophilic coating and most are good, but yeah, we do our own in-house hydrophilic coating. We partner with some other local coating company in China, but part of the success of any of these balloons is the ability to cross, and you know this better than I do. And when you get to chronic total occlusion lesions or things that should not be crossed, that part of it is the coating and the transition of the materials. And so how you coat the distal assembly, and even if you're putting a silicone coating in the inner lumen or you're doing just external hydrophilic coating, the coating does play a big role. So a lot of the coatings out there, you can tell a big difference. I think nowadays there's a couple of really solid coating companies that provide most of the companies. You know, Surmodics has a great coating, DSM has a great coating. These companies are all really good. I think what you do to move forward is the individual companies that are really interested in these leisure prep devices that want to be a vertically integrated company. You take the technology, compare it, and you make your own. So BrosMed has been able to make a coating that is super lubricious. And we do have feedback on how crossable our balloons are. Some physicians might say they're too lubricious, but others will say they love them. So I think you have to dial in based on what the actual clinical indication is that you're treating the patient for, and then what you feel that you like. So we have high pressure balloons and non-compliant and semi-compliant. Those all might play a little different with the coating and what you feel. So depending on which product you use and what size it was, or and how the condition of that vessel was, I think that plays a role too. But I mean, you've used it, and maybe I don't know if so the coating to you was more lubricious. That's a lot of the times if I heard that, I'd be excited because that means crossability. Maybe sometimes it's too lubricious, and that's why I love feedback from you, just to understand what you're looking at.
No, I liked it. I was delightfully impressed by it. Also, the basics that I asked: good inflation and deflation times, high burst rates. I want to be able to crank it up. And that was one of those things from like back in the Jades that you were mentioning. That's one of the first things that I was like, Jade's pretty cool. Like you can go all the way up to what was it, like 20 atmospheres? Yeah, dude, you can.
Yeah, so we have
you can fuck a
22,
tibia up.
24 atmospheres. Based on it is, we all came from the same cut from the same tree. These balloons are based on a technology that we all worked together with when we were at Orbis Niche. BrosMed just kept innovating and brought everything in house. I think that's the key. So that not only do we have innovation continuing, dumping the revenue we do make back into R&D, now we have myself helping communicate what your unmet needs are with a huge sense of urgency. And so even February 28th, we just had approved cleared by the FDA, our new Parafleet balloon. This is a balloon that goes up to 300 millimeters in length for the balloon length. It's a 200 centimeter shaft, but there's also a 150. There's also 40, 75, 90. And this is probably the most extensive semi-compliant platform that is offered on the planet. And we're going to have those available come May, June. And I already have orders in because we have tapered versions of them.
Oh my God.
And then, so this is like, I cannot wait. When this comes, we will be able to get into contractual agreements because we have a portfolio no one else has. And part of my success earlier, which makes me a little bit confident with BrosMed too, is I was the person that brought the first 1.0 millimeter balloon to the United States. So when I was at Orbis Niche, when I wanted to get to the United States, I said, we have to have a unique device. We have to have one unique configuration where the doctors and the hospitals and the GPOs, when we present it to them, they're like, we don't have this, so we need it. That gets you into the contract. So if you have something that's unique, like our new cutting balloon that's coming out called the Revo Edge, I'm going to start a trial very quickly coming up.
At Hope. He's doing the study at Hope. Right? You're doing the study at Hope? Okay, cool.
We're going to do this is going to be, so it's already approved in Europe and China. It's a cutting balloon that has the crossing profile of a POBA.
Oh
and
my
it's
God.
a high pressure cutting balloon.
We need
it's so amazing. It's going to be Like I am so pumped up to just offer that. And I'll tell you, when that product comes to the market, if I'm not in a hospital account yet, like Ascension or you know better than me, whatever the acronyms are, the other ones, but HPG, I will bring this, and I guarantee you, instantly, it will be accepted by all the. I just did a VAT interview at 4:30 in the morning, and it was a blast. And I love presenting all these physicians, and hopefully we'll land that contract, at least be able to participate. I love this, and you can tell how passionate I am about it. I will not. You will have BrosMed everywhere.
You know what? If I had a wish list, I want a Navicross that's a balloon.
What do you mean? Explain.
A Navicross that's a balloon. So I can use it as a catheter.
So you want a balloon that has a lot of like
I want
pushability crossing a crossing catheter.
I want to use my Navicross. I don't have to change for a balloon. I use it, I cross, I can reuse it. It has very similar crossing profile. Again, so I'm crossing an SFA.
Talking about an 035?
An 035. 035 Navicross, that's a balloon. That's what I want.
Okay, we'll put it on the list.
Writing it down because
see,
I like to be the genie. Your wish is my command.
Yes,
so
please.
I'm gonna, this is the stuff I love. Like I'm already working on a 4 French only platform, which everything fits through a 4 French. That's gonna be huge. Some physicians have talked about a reverse taper, which is cool. Whatever, that's some boom mold change. We got the new Parafleet family coming out, the Tri-Wedge, which is a peripheral scoring balloon. Again, hobo-like dimensions. You can get this thing primary in. Like we don't have indication for primary inflation, but go for it. This thing is a 20 to 24 atmosphere scoring balloon for peripheral, and no one really uses it in the OBLs or the ASCs because scoring and cutting balloons are very expensive.
Incredibly expensive.
I'm here to give you. I'm not trying to get crumbs from the table. I want the friggin' turkey. So if I can get into a relationship with you guys, and you're using stuff for new procedures that you didn't have the advantage to because you just couldn't afford it, that's where we come in. We're competitive price in the sense that we're partnering up with you. We're industry meets physicians. And you got no layers to go through. It's me. I'm here. We negotiate.
So here's my call. Here's my call.
Can I ask you a question first? Is there is there a, like when you are choosing material for your procedures in your own place, can you like pick and choose? Oh, I want BrosMed's balloons because high quality plus my overhead, my operational expenses are lower. This small atherectomy device company, super niche, I choose them. Or do you get tied into contracts that don't allow you to do that?
It's funny that you were asking me that because that's what I was about to say. Call to action.
Yeah.
The question is, current OBL, current ASC owners, are you stuck to some agreement that limits your capacity to engage in other companies and bring companies into the door? And the answer, plain and simple, is yes. And I'll tell you why. Because a lot of these fuckers, what they do is they take people that are naive and that don't understand how this happens, and they bring in capital equipment that gets tied into a stupid lease for forgiveness based on the amount of product you use. I'm not going to go into details. I can tell you all of this in person, but I am now in a legal battle with one of the companies because they decide to park this stupid machine in my lab and they say, oh, you have to make this much money in our products and we'll discount. Every month you get discounted out of like $150,000 to $175,000 in yearly rent to have that piece of shit parked
yearly rent?
Yes. I don't even get me started. So, and then like, it's not even that it's a capital year to purchase so that the next year it's yours. No, it's a lease. So every year the counter goes back to zero. It is anti-competitive. It is immoral. And I hope that all these companies get flushed out. This is one of my most stern stances I've ever had in this. But to all of you big corporations, we are unto you. It is done. We are overpaying these stupid contracts Don't get yourself, there's no reason why you should be overpaying for some capital equipment. That is just the fact that they know that they're walking on ice and they're trying to get you to be stuck with them, okay? So what happens then is somebody like Scott comes in with a great product at a great price, and guess what? You're using the overpriced balloons just so that you can pay for the capital equipment at the end of the year. Because what happens is if you don't make that 175 or that 150 or that 90, that delta gets sent to you on an invoice and say, oh, oops, you didn't make your capital equipment payment. So here's $30,000 that you owe us now.
Fucker.
That's where I'm now going a lot, which is like, F you, I'm not going to pay you $30,000 for having a device parked here that isn't even useful.
Can you get out of the lease?
Of course, you can break it for the net, like just.
Yeah.
But the thing is, these people are like, oh no, we're going to support you in getting the OBL up and we're going to give you everything you know and we're going to educate you and take you on these. It's just, listen, be educated. You want to get into this business, go learn, talk to people that are doing it. Do not let any company tag you in some ridiculous capital equipment nonsense.
Okay, Life of Flow retreat, education, and setting up your own.
Yeah, do not. There's no need. There's enough independent companies that now have very good debulking devices that you can go and have contracts where there's no capital equipment other than a damn cable.
Yeah.
A cable.
And that's the approach, by the way. You're 100% correct. Like, you guys are, is it hard for me? Yeah, but I'll tell you what people are refreshed with is I don't come in with some bargaining bullshit tool. I'm not trying to get you to commit to some, like you said, pay me this and I'll give you a discount. Listen, I'm the guy who doesn't need a discount because our prices are already competitive. And there's so many clinicians and so many OBLs, ASCs that are so fed up with exactly what you just said, that mine's such a breath of fresh air. They're figuring out a way to get me in because they know it ain't going to last forever. To your point, as soon as you can get out of it, you're not doing that anymore. Well, guess what? You'll get out of it and I'll be sitting there with a basket of fruit saying, I'm here. I've always been here.
Exactly. So for all of you stuck to one of these things, look at the date, look at the next time that contract rescinds, already send them a letter 90 days ahead of it and say, I'm not signing this up. Done. And get ready, call Scott and call 2 or 3 other companies because maybe Scott doesn't have everything you need. Maybe you need a laser that doesn't have a capital equipment. Maybe you need an atherectomy with frontal clutter and suction that doesn't have a capital equipment expense. Make a good contract, get a good pricing. End the story. No more smokes and mirrors, man. This is crazy. Y'all, stay at the hospitals. Keep doing smokes and mirrors. Keep selling atherectomy devices for ridiculous amounts of money, making the margin to maintain your stupid sales force. But leave us alone and stop preying on the physicians that are trying to have a good style of life. We want to go back to being happy, to being able to go home, to being able to make a living, and don't take us for dumb. Don't let yourself be taken over. Like I feel so strongly because I got roped into this and I felt I was an experienced, smart, intelligent man, and still I fell on my own wrongdoing. And I'm still paying for it,
One of the things we promised, and I mean, I'm not selling big, equipment or capital, and we try to stay away from that. Even with the IVL that we're developing, it's a handheld, no capital involved. It's a single use, like battery operated. It's really sweet, but that's a years away. But I mean, we're trying to focus on literally, I'm transparent. This is what we need to get in order to make money. We want you guys to be able to do your cases. And maybe some companies will be upset, but I'll tell you what, they're not, because after you stack everything you just said, Miguel, they're actually selling the balloon for almost nothing because you're committed to this big ass lease. And so they act like they're keeping the balloon pricing high. They're not keeping the balloon pricing high. Nope. They're killing me. If I tell you some of the competitive prices I'm going against, it's ridiculous. I would never sell a balloon for that price because no one's meant, it might be good for the OBL, but you're not going to be able to sustain your business. And soon, one day they're going to wake up and be like, hey, where's this catheter? Well, we sold to you for so cheap. We went out of business. But there's also a 50-50 play here. Like, I'll give you a good price. I make enough margin. And by the time one day I'll come out with this niche product, competitive device that commands a good margin, you guys are saving time. An economic model shows that you're saving $3,000 a case because of this device that lets you inflate and deflate and get in and out 6 times faster. And then you're willing to pay that margin where we're all happy, but we're saving you a ton of money and time. That's my goal. Give you something that we both get paid more money because We're giving you a better device that provides a better patient care for a quality of life. You're able to get in and out faster, and the margins are both making us money. That's it.
Don't let anybody, doctors out there, don't let anybody make you feel like there's no margin to be done in the outpatient clinics. There is still margin. Yes, CMS has been punitive. Yes, they've been cutting us, and it's making it really hard to operate. So there's two things to survive. You either get out, go back to the hospital, get a W-2,
Or innovate.
yeah, or refurbish your cost and cut your margins. I mean, cut your expenditures. And so if you can't find a partner that's understanding of the market, that's reading the market, and that's saying, okay, are all these OBLs going to go away, or are they going to want to substantiate their long-term existence by having a margin protected in the in the setting of less reimbursement? Of course, that's what we're going to try to do, right? So it's not like the times of being callous and having all these people and overpaying for product. That's dead.
Yeah. Like you don't, these companies don't need to be paying for reps that just go get you coffee.
Exactly.
No, your reps should be
Yeah.
interactive,
Yeah.
and they should be there, and they should be. And a lot of my reps are pretty cool because they're 1099s. They're out there selling other people's products, and I
Yeah.
don't care. I
Yeah,
want you
what's
to,
wrong?
if I can help you stay in the hospital an hour longer, so there's 2 other promotional products you're selling in addition to mine, which has nothing to do with BrosMed. Hey, you know what? I don't have to pay for a salesforce. You get involvement, and I'll tell you part of me being a general partner in a VC firm is I'm on both sides of the table right now. So I have startup companies coming to me say, hey, we want you to invest in our company. I see all this new technology. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. By the way, how are your costs? How are your material costs? You feel like you're getting screwed? And if you are, I also am the COO of a major manufacturing company. So how do I help you? And by the way, I think of myself as an octopus. I got all these tentacles. All of them are working together right now. It was my biggest dream to take a position that allowed me to maintain other relationships and other business opportunities. BrosMed's allowed me to do that. I have a company that's trying to expand in the United States. They have access to everything. We have revenue generating profitability. We have a cool no layer type corporate. We don't have a culture. I hate cultures. Anyone who uses the word culture, it's not a culture. It's a freaking cult. You added URE in it. If you have to talk about your culture, it's not real. Culture should be just developed naturally. It should be one where you come in and you want to be there. You love working. And I see so many times it's just bullshit. It really is. And I know that my staff, being small and elite, like a Navy SEAL team, there's going to be people knocking on the door to come join BrosMed. I'm not going to have to go out and pretend I'm something I'm not. And that, as much as it drives you crazy with all those lease deals, that type of environment is just killing so much innovation, because it's just you're trying to navigate a difficult day instead of just focusing on having a blast and building new products and getting new concepts out the door. So I'm all about like that environment at work where you wake up every morning and you just cannot wait to get into the office. And I love that. And I think that's another reason a lot of these companies won't succeed, where I know BrosMed will. We already have, and BrosMed US is definitely going to, because I'm running an operation where everyone's going to want to be a part of it. Everyone.
Well, God bless
And
you.
that is why he is Scott. Cool dude.
Cool dude. All right. So now everybody, if you want to, get in touch with Scott, make sure you put him on your contacts as
Phone is
Scott.
Scott Cool dude. Yeah.
And
Scott
let me know
Cool
how
dude.
else I can help get you guys some of our new devices that are coming out. So Miguel, if you have any questions or anything, or Lucas, just let me know. And like I said, we're here for long haul. Takes time. I love you guys trying everything. Don't need to buy it. Give me feedback. And one day I know we'll all be partnered up in some aspect. And this is great. I love your podcast, man. I've been looking at them, watching them on LinkedIn. So I appreciate the invitation to come and join you guys.
Well, you've made it a really easy talk.
Yeah.
You're a great guest. And as I said at the beginning, I hope it's the beginning, the first of hopefully many other conversations.
I hope so.
As I always say, may hope and Life of Flow be a home for you and a beacon to get your light out there. So anytime you have something fun that you want to showcase or that you want to talk about, just keep us in mind, because there's a lot of people that for some odd reason like listening to us. And I think that they appreciate learning about all this new cool shit. And so
Absolutely.
don't get bogged by the old contracts. Step into the new challenge. Life is good. Life is beautiful. Business can be fun. And pura vida.
Vamos.
Yeah, we say "ilu shuan feng" in Chinese, which means "let the wind be behind your back."
I
So if
love
you're ever
that.
taking off and traveling, or you're trying to get to the next place in life, "ilu shuan feng."
Wen Feng.
Let the wind take you away. So
Luge Wen Feng.
"ilu shuan feng."
Illusion phone, Lucas.
Luge Wen Feng, Miguel.
All right, brother. God
Vamos.
bless you.
Hey, you too. That guys, and
All
right.
yeah, stay casual. Talk
Thanks,
to you soon,
man.
bro.
Talk to you
Bye.
soon.
Pura
Bye.
vida.